Now, if you've lost motivation and don't feel the need of taking action after spiritual awakening, then this is completely normal. After spiritual awakening, we have this to just feel like we are depressed, we are unmotivated, nothing really inspires us. And it's totally normal because it's like a construct of self, what we have believed that we are, all of this. Why is being like we are watching it. It's almost like you wake up and realize that all that you believe is not really all that there is, and it's a lie. And then it's almost like your walls start crumbling down because there are beliefs that are being changed, and there are perception. There are things that you believe about yourself that no longer make sense, right? You identify as this person, and then you realize that, hey, all of this is not really who you are, right? And all of this has really been just driven by the wounded ego, right? And as a result, you're like, okay, now that I'm here, I don't feel like doing anything, because if all of this is false, then what is the need? What is the essence of doing something? So I'm just going to stay, I'm just going to be lazy, and I'm just going to have not doing anything. And this causes kind of like lack of motivation and drive. And I totally understand this. And it makes sense that you do not have motivation and drive right now to do things. But one thing that you fail to understand is that the fact that you're awakened actually means that there's so much more that you need to do in this life, and this is fulfilling your purpose. Because somebody doesn't really have a sense of purpose, they just have a sense of self and living to fulfill the wounded ego until you're fully awakened. So when you're awakened, your desires change, right? It's not just longer about the money, it's not just longer about the things, it's more about, is it in alignment to my soul, is it in alignment to my purpose, right? And if you lack motivation, and most of you do, you know that you should be fulfilling a purpose. You know what your purpose is. You know you should be maybe sharing some content, doing some things, but then there's just no motivation to do it because like there's no drive, because it's like, what is the essence? And most of the time we don't have this drive because, oh, this is driven by the ego. If I want to start a YouTube channel, if I want to write, if I want to do this, it's just still me going back to my ego and doing things from the ego, which is the part of self that I've been trying, or I've been working all this while to leave behind. So if I go back to doing things that way and working in alignment to that, and then I'm literally falling back into living in the matrix. But this is where the distortion happened, and I've been saying this over this channel for a while. It's not about you not having desires, and the lack of motivation and the depression, the void that you feel is because your soul is not really doing what it's supposed to be doing. Now, there is a phase where you just need to be and deconstruct, and that's okay. But there's a phase where you start feeling the fire in your heart and the fire in your soul and the fire in your belly to take action, to show up and to share that message, and to say your voice and let that which you have been embodying to share with the world and change life and help people heal, help people awaken. And you're literally being called, you feel it in your guts to get up and actually lead a movement, being a leader and start something. But then the ego and the mind sets up, you're like, hey, no, that all of that is not necessary, because again, that is the ego and all of that. But this is what you want to understand. And we start here. We start here by saying that yes, you might have lived according to your ego in the past, but your ego was just a wounded ego. And if you have done some inner work, which if you have not done, you should send me a DM. That's what we do here. You're going to notice that you have done a lot of inner work to actually heal your ego, so that you're no longer driven by it, and you're driven by your soul's desire, and your ego becomes this container that helps you to fuel it. And this is why my concept of not killing the ego, not dissolving the ego, but integrating it comes in. Because after you awaken, yes, your sense of self changes. The ego is literally being deconstructed, and you see what it taught, who you thought you were, what it taught you were, your importance, and all of that kind of like being crumbled down, and you're being called to live from the heart. But the distortion comes when we don't want to actually live again and do things from the ego, because then it means we are going back, right? Which never really is it. When you understand that your soul desire for leadership, for showing up and sharing your message, for transforming life, talking about your journey, teaching the spiritual concept, leading the movement, helping people heal, starting your guidance business or whatever it is, when you understand that it is your soul desire, that is the first step. And then the second step is when you understand that your ego, though it was wounded, it's now no longer wounded, and you can use it as a tool to actually fulfill this soul's desire without needing to kill the ego. And when you stop killing the ego and seeing the ego as the enemy, but start seeing it as a tool to use to fulfill this soul's calling, this desire of your soul to actually create impact, this desire of the soul to serve people and to change lives, when you start realizing that, it changes everything. So your soul wants what it wants, which is it wants to help people, it wants to transform people. And this is why you're feeling depressed, because you are not fulfilling your purpose. You're not doing what you should be doing. It's almost like you're a stagnant water. And this is why we get more unmotivated and depressed and sad, because now we are stagnant water. We can't really do anything because there's this conflict within, and your soul desire that you should flow. You should be, as you're learning, as you're evolving, as you're growing, you're sharing with others, you're teaching others, you're sharing all the lessons and all the wisdom, even your journey. But when the ego is like, no, that is from the ego, if you're sharing that it's from the ego, then it's going to be, because you think it's the enemy, you're not going to do that, and then you're going to lose drive. So first of all, the ego is not the enemy for someone who is awakened, because now you can actually identify the ego and you've healed your ego. And when you heal your ego, it no longer dictates what you do. It no longer dictates your action. It simply becomes the desire that you use to for and accomplish, like the desire that you use to accomplish the soul's desire. So what I mean by the desire that you use to accomplish the soul's desire is this: your soul desire to share your wisdom with the world, let people know more about your spiritual awakening journey or transformation journey, the things you've been healing, the things you've been working on, how you've been changing your life. Great and fine. Now, you actually have another desire, which maybe you've been denying, you've been suppressing, you've been rejecting, which is you really desire to be seen, you really desire to be heard. Yes, because you can't transform life without being seen and heard. And the moment you keep making that desire to be seen or bad because you think it's okay, it's just from the ego, then you're going to not be able to fulfill your desire to help people, because you think that it's the ego. But what if your desire to help people was the leading thing, and your desire to share the wisdom that you've been learning on your spiritual ascension journey, and all of these things become like your guiding light? And because it is your guiding light, now everything that you do, right? Everything that you do, like your desire to be seen, you are like, yes, I want to be seen, but I'm not want to be seen because I want to be seen to validate myself, but I want to be seen so that I can share my message with the world, so that I can change the lives of so many people. And this integration of the ego is literally one of the hardest part in your spiritual awakening journey, because most of us are really stuck. Most of us are really unhappy. Most of us are really frustrated and depressed because we don't really understand the ego and how it works and its job. Because your job is not to reject or suppress it, because it's a part of self. It's a part of self that you will forever have. And I will say this and say this again. There is no way you are never going to have an ego. As long as you have a name, you have an ego, because your name is a construct of the mind. It's a construct that people made up and they started calling you, oh, Sonita, oh, David, oh, John. And as long as you're answering that to that name, your ego is still there. So it never really dies. But what happens is that you learn to integrate it and use it for the soul's purpose, and it becomes a servant to the soul. And this is when you start feeling fulfilled, because you're doing all of these things and you're growing and you're evolving and you're ascending on your journey. But then the soul, the ego is here serving the soul, and then your mission, your soul mission is being fulfilled. You are being happy because you're productive and you're actually flowing water, right? But when you are stagnant, you become unhappy. When you're stagnant, when you're not doing anything, and most of the time we don't do things again because of all of the dissolution that is happening to the ego. Yes, the ego is dissolving, meaning that your sense of self is deconstructing. But then I don't want you to kill it, because you need it. Because it's a part of self that cannot die. It's not about killing it, it's about integrating it. And it's not even about dissolving it. It's about integrating it, understanding how all what it believes is a lie. And yeah, in fact, even the wounded part of it, that thinks that it's incomplete, it's not whole, it's all of this, it's a lie. How can I heal this? And then how can I use this to actually allow me to fulfill my soul's desire? And this is when you're going to be set free and you start feeling motivated again. You start feeling passion again, because now it's like both polarity are integrated in you. in your soul, in your heart, and in your spirit. So this is it, and I hope this was helpful for you. See you in the next one.